Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Smudcast number 635. So, should we stop saying JRPG? And as you know, this is the Jimquisition. We just had a video of his a few weeks ago, I think.
I have no idea. I wasn't there for that.
Yeah, we cut off rather early. It was hard to go through, and I wasn't watching the screen. I was just listening to his strange take. And
Even this time, I was loaded more into like the JRPG topic, and then it turns out it's Jim. Like, oh, the fat faggot has shown himself. oh, wait, can I even say that anymore?
we're not sure what he is, and that's fine. He could be whatever he wants. It's just hard to.
He identifies as one.
It's hard to describe him in a respectable light because he doesn't look respectable. He looks like a clown.
Well, first of all, like he doesn't respect anyone, so why should I respect him?
That is one way of putting it. I don't know. I give everyone the benefit of the doubt, even those double toasted guys, until they started making shit up, and it's just like we can only tolerate so many lies.
Yeah,
and I don't mind if he's hyperbolic. I don't mind if he exaggerates and has his own opinions. That's fine. But do we really want to hear a semantic game of a guy who's going to start lambasting Japan because they have the greatest RPGs, or the most RPGs, I would say, as well, in the world?
I definitely have the most RPGs. Like, it's every day they have like a new title coming out, like titles that I have never heard about.
Yeah,
probably not. Or Japan only.
And they're downloadable, free to play on your phone. And Square Enix has just been pumping them out the past year and a half. So
yeah,
it's amazing. I think the one on screen is the latest. Is it not Octopath 2? What is that? I think it's
Octopath Traveler 2 came out.
Is it 2? I think that's 2 on the screen. I can't remember. But the first one was amazing. They did a remake of Tactics Ogre, which was amazing remake. Like, they really redid a lot of stuff. They hired amazing voice actors. I was so impressed just with the cutscenes, even though I know exactly what's going to happen. I really just sat back and just listened to these wonderful actors say their lines. So yeah, there's lots of great stuff coming out, and they're not expensive. They're good games, under $50. So anyway, I really don't care about RPG definitions. I've had this since high school. It's not a big deal, especially for JRPGs, which can be anything from tactical gaming to role playing purely to RTSs, to turn-based combat. Who knows? There's all kinds of elements and genres and subgenres. And
yeah, what we usually associated with that was the turn-based combat.
Interesting. Okay. I always said it was.
And I would say nowadays also it's when you have really wacky storytelling.
Wacky storytelling.
But yeah, like whatever Final Fantasy is doing, I do not know. But that I would just say is inherently Japanese.
Okay.
Here it's JRPG is strongly associated with the turn-based combat.
Okay, I usually associate that with tactical RPGs. Whenever I say Final Fantasy Tactics, I put on the T to whatever we're talking about, just because that's the one I know and I know very well, and it's usually turn-based anyway. So Dragon Quest is not tactical per se, but it is turn-based. So, yeah, but that's most RPGs anyway. Past 80s, 90s, 2000s, it's all just screen, enemy on the screen, your console or your little GUI, and you select the attack option or the fight option. And I think Final Fantasy switched it up with the active turn battle system, so it feels like it's real time, but it's not quite real time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I would associate all the wacky goofiness to manga style art and how it influences anime and vice versa, and how gaming has largely influenced that for the past 10 years, if not the past 30 years, but specifically to the genre of isekai. So everything has become this tongue-in-cheek gaming manga anime experience. So you look at Persona series now, it's just, it's the Persona.
With relationship systems.
Relationship systems, turn-based combat, you talk to your enemies, you upgrade your heroes and friends, and you take them out for dates and whatever. It's all kind of becoming the same.
Well, it is role-playing after all, so
I know.
I need those elements in it.
Exactly, yeah. So whether it's a a loyalty system in Mass Effect or Dragon Age, or a school system with a schedule like in Persona.
I'd say it's a very different approach to role-playing than Western RPGs.
It's a simpler, streamlined, more detailed version than of what companies have done as a result of the popularity of the RPG genre as a whole, and then integrating those elements into like first-person shooters or third-person games or whatever any else elements are there, whether it's dice rolls or actual stats that reflect damage. So
yeah, but those are gameplay mechanics that personally I associate less with role-playing. With role-playing, I associate the actual character play.
Right.
And that means you make decisions of how a character acts. And as well as in tabletop RPGs, there are people who just dungeon crawl. They're all about stats, and I think that's role-playing. That's just you playing mechanics in a board game. Western RPGs, there were these few special gems. The one that we always mention is Planescape Torment, that really shapes the story, character, and progression, and the world as you affect that. And in Japan, I'd say the only place where you really see something reflected like that is visual novels, where you have decision trees.
Which is basically choose your own adventure visual novels, but in a game.
Yes. Yeah, but you decide you decide the actual decisions of your character, what your character says, and thus how the story goes from there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah, no, the only thing I can think of that has that sort of randomization outside of like turn-based Western RPGs like Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out that has that literal dice roll would be stuff like Alpha Protocol, where you have your accuracy.
I do not trust Baldur's Gate 3.
No, neither do I. I do not. I'm not saying it's a good game. I'm just saying that's the system.
And throwing the D20 into the UI, I think, is pretentious at this point.
It is a bit awkward. When I saw that, I was
like, didn't need it for decades, and suddenly, oh look, we have a D20 because we're Dungeons and Dragons, right?
It is a bit. Yeah, you're like, okay, that's a bit too much on the nose to talk about role-playing in the West.
Yeah, please do not break the immersion by showing me that it's an actual game that I'm playing.
Plus, it's Larian Studios.
Pull me out of it.
And they have pretty much done very well doing turn-based games, and I'm great. I like Larian Studios. I just don't like what they did with Baldur's Gate, and it's kind of sad for me. And the dev cycle, it's been in beta for almost 3 years. It's coming out in August, I think, this year. And I'm not saying they're a bad company. I'm not saying what they did was a bad product. Obviously, people love the beta and people who bought into it and all that crap. Good for you. You love it. More power to you. But it's not Baldur's Gate anymore. It's something else. It's this weird, we want to play a tabletop game using this license, and we're going to do whatever we want. And there's this ridiculous life cycle of development. It's just not the same experience. And that's sad, because when you say this is a Baldur's Gate game, I'm like, where's Baldur's Gate? All I see is a bunch of guys running around in dungeons with those, what do they call it? Illithids?
Illithids, yes.
Trying to, brain rape you. It's like, okay, that's not quite Baldur's Gate, but you've got like this very small portion of it in your game as the premise. So
it really annoyed me in Neverwinter Nights, but at least it's the main plot this time and not just some side nonsense.
The intro, it was like the spaceships coming down and crash. I'm like, what is this? Fantasy? Science fantasy? What's happening?
Oh, you don't know the history of the Illithids?
Only from Planescape, not the rest of it.
The Illithids are a race that does not exist yet. They come from the future.
Oh, jeez.
They flee into the present to escape the ultimate apocalypse of the end of the universe.
Oh.
So they come into the past to live here and torment us because they need food.
Great.
That's the super TLDR of the Illithids.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I like the Planescape Torment story of the Githyanki better, just because it's more sad and tragic and competitive. Mm-hmm. But anyway, We got I don't know why Gigaman is throwing money at the screen when he's in the call, but he hasn't signed up yet. So, Japanese developers are such RPG masters, I agree, that they even took a shot at making a Western-style RPG in the form of Dragon's Dogma. Yes, and even that game became a cult classic. Yeah, you give the Japanese anything, they will take it apart, and they will refine it to make it their own, sometimes even better. So.
Yeah. So what I would personally differentiate is towards games like Diablo, for example, the Diablo series. Those are not role-playing games. You pick a character class, but the rest is about stats and hack and slashing.
Right.
There are no decision making. In Diablo 3, there was a bit more active story that you pushed through on rails. But that's basically that. In the difference to JRPGs is that they are extremely story heavy. They are not dungeon crawler heavy. There are those that have that operate on random generated dungeons, I think Lufia 3 on the Game Boy was a bit annoying. But the main story is still there and pretty elaborate.
Yeah.
And on these Western action adventures, the story is usually not very elaborate.
I will say that the experience the past 10 years, let's say with Dragon Quest, to me that's like the definitive JRPG, has been very handcrafted, that there's always some line of dialogue, there's some item description, there's some goofy, silly thing happening on the screen with your colleagues. And it's basically a fun adventure experience. It's colorful.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels, that to me, that feels very Japanese without being, the Shintoism and this and that.
Yeah, you may not have much effect on the story and world progression, but the story is very well fleshed out with lots of text going through, not just plain on rails. It's a bit harder to make the distinction since action adventures, hack and slash, whatever it is that Diablo has gotten more of that narrative bit. But it all feels passive in something like Diablo 3. While in JRPGs, you still feel the story feels more active. You feel more part of it somehow. I don't know why that is.
These games are also very well done. They're very long, and there's a lot. It's not just fighting. The fighting is its own experience. It does take time, but the storytelling and where you have to go, the adventure, that's more part of it than it is just the fighting. So going through a dungeon, finding the last boss, pretty standard stuff. But it's part of a scenario. It's part of a set piece that has a plot point, and then you keep going from there. Even with games like Final Fantasy VIII, as bizarre as that was to experience, there's like progression from A to B, even though it doesn't quite make sense why. And then, we're time traveling now. Like, now we're in space. It's like, there's a connection to follow through. And the world may be hard to grasp, but like the experience to get there is interesting. The same with Chrono Cross. People don't like that because too many characters, hard to follow story, fight system is very weird. But when you pay attention, it's like, we're shifting through another dimension. We're taking the body of the villain, and he's taking my body. The villain's like Harlequin is literally called Harlequin, and she's now my compatriot. You're like, this is weird. And then you find out what happened to Chrono, Marl, and Luca, and what's happening to the world and the dragons. What are the dragons, and what's going on with the hero Glenn, and all these other side stories that come together. So it's this whole experience. It's not just fight weird battle system with magic.
It grows and fleshes out more. It's not just a long tunnel and boss at the end.
It feels like you're reading a book, and then you get to chapter 5, and there's more world building, and it just keeps going, and there's more world building, and maybe you might unlock a new mechanic or change an old mechanic. It's not just getting better weapons and gear. So,
yeah. And these games are usually surprisingly long.
Yes, I agree.
So if you, prime example, Lufia for the Super Nintendo. If you were a kid in the 90s and you got that game, you had content for months.
Well, even the recent ones like Persona 5, it's just a huge world. It'll take you at least 2-3 months to play normally. Like, obviously, you could play it within 2 weeks if you really wanted to. But there's so much to do. There's so many side stories, so many characters.
And then it even had post-game content.
Oh, really? Oh, Joey.
Yeah, look, did you not know Lufia had a New Game Plus?
I probably did. I just don't remember. It's been such a long time.
Yeah, so the New Game Plus was nothing special. You got double XP for every enemy. I don't know if there was also more damage or anything, but the double XP is what you notice very quickly. And after you beat the New Game Plus, you get the Ancient Cave as a distinct game mode. You know, the random dungeon with its 99 levels.
Yeah.
And the difference to the normal game is that for every run, you can choose any character, your party to be with any character from the game. So characters you don't have access to at the end of the game anymore, for example.
I remember lots of games do that. Valkyrie Profile has the final huge dungeon. Tactics Ogre does that. So all these games give you post-game content to keep experiencing. And
that Ancient Cave at the end of Lufia, that is content for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything specific to Japanese RPGs that they do that, but nowadays we have post-game content you can buy, like DLCs and what have you. So I think the business model has slightly changed, but the idea is still, we like this product. It's still selling. People still are playing it. Let's keep it going for another few months.
Yeah, but the difference there is, as well, as you say, DLC. That means you buy it, you have it unlocked. When back with those games, you get that as a reward for playing so much.
Right. Yeah. Well,
that makes it also feel different. I think
it does, but at the same time, you realize that when Persona 5 comes out because we know the Atlas is going to come out with a second version or a third version of all their games. You're like, okay, can I sell my old one and get this one? They might offer a rebate. I don't know if they still do that. So I know Capcom used to do it with their Street Fighters. And if not, you have to go to the game store. I don't know if they have them anymore. That you could just get $10 rebate for your old game. You return that one to get Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting Edition or whatever it was called. So, but that's Japan. It's a different culture. That's cool. Let's see what Jim has to say about JRPGs.
No one in their right mind would bet against Bandalam. 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 Bandalam.
What?
That was the funny segment.
What was that about?
I was trying to make a joke.
Way over my head. Though.
Oh god, he's making the intro deliberately gay.
Right.
Ah!
We're in the murder basement. Been hearing some
Too much light.
weird noises.
Turn it off.
So we're just going to go check that out. On the hat. It's been a while since we've been down here. There's all sorts of spiders, but they don't really make the kind of noises we've been hearing. So.
I mean, with the kind of I feel like this is a perfectly fine place for an individual like this.
Maybe someone waltz Jim in.
Why is Jim living in a dungeon now?
It's his real home.
You can't eat that.
Pretends.
I thought he was going to eat it.
Is he now this nostalgic prick?
I'll gladly take it.
What was that about?
I don't know.
Hello
We know you
everyone.
want to eat it, Jim.
James Stephanie Sterling here in the murder basement.
James Stephanie.
Where something happened.
Okay, Jim, you are not trans. Someone trans would not do this double name shit. You're just an attention-whoring guy.
We're talking about role. RPGs. And before we get into the meat of the matter, it actually got me thinking about a little thing. When it comes to a game like Final Fantasy, is RPG even technically right?
Sure.
Because with a, say, Dungeons and Dragons style RPG, you pick your own class, make your own character, and you, as the player, fulfill that role. Whereas you play something like Final Fantasy VII, and your Cloud
and you fulfill that role too. That's the same thing.
You fulfill, yeah. It's like JRPG is a lot more predetermined and like plot heavy, of like how you're supposed to like do that kind of story segment, but you still have like that role playing element in there, like how you're gonna like approach something.
Yeah,
like,
you have customization options.
Yeah, look at
way too much, and like how
Fantasy,
you're gonna like treat your teammates as such. I think I don't know like how much that plays it. I think in Final Fantasy VII there are side quests that you can do, and you can power them up in that way. But they are not part of the main story, so like they are completely up to you if you want to do those. But right now I'm replaying Persona 4. Like there's just so many customizations in that, just by how much you're willing to go with social links.
Yeah, but there's nothing stopping if they really wanted to in, say, Persona 4 to have a customization option that's purely cosmetic, so that you would have like, instead of gray hair, you'd have black hair. You could do all kinds of things.
Well, yeah, the costumes are there already, but I think like Persona 3 Portable was giving you the chance that you can play as a girl if you want to.
Yeah, it's really no different than, let's say, a male and female Commander Shepard in the West, but that's specific to a certain company who wants to do that sort of game with a certain story. That's fine.
Yeah, but if it's about classes, that the customization Final Fantasy you get in 7, you get it through materia. In 8, you get it through how you link your Guardian forces and potentially what spells you put on whom to link that with stats.
Yeah.
You in the later Secret of Mana games, you get class changes that you can do for each character. They have a branch off twice, so you get a choice of up to 6 classes, which is something that a lot of Japanese MMORPGs do. Like, what was the one well known? I forgot the name. The thing that everyone played.
Final Fantasy VII?
No. The 2.5D one.
Oh.
Crash Bandicoot?
No, there was so many of those things.
I like running.
He mentioned Dragon Age, and like that's like a good example of how to fuck yourself in the ass in the first minute, because in Dragon Age Origins, just to be like a very simple example, like the only difference that you can make by choosing a different class or like sex for the character is the very intro game of the stuff. Because like afterwards, like after the first 2 hours, you're just gonna be a Grey Warden. So it doesn't really matter like what you're gonna do about it.
Yeah, but the nature of video gaming back in the 90s was we have pre-rendered graphics, so we have these baked videos, we have these characters we've already established, they have their themes and their outfits are all the same. So even if you were to customize Cloud to be like a redheaded whatever, the pre-rendered video would play and it's just going to be him with his yellow spiky hair.
Yeah.
So that was not part of their design. If it were, they would have allowed that to happen and everything would have been real-time cutscenes. It wouldn't have looked as good. People would be like, oh, I'm not going to buy this, because a lot of people who bought Final Fantasy VII bought it because it looked like a movie at certain times. And they had the interactive elements, which looked like 500, 600 polygon character people.
Yes.
So that was it. That sold them. So that was their business decision. They made a whole bunch of money, and good for them. That's the most popular product, I guess, right now. So it's a design choice. It has nothing to do with role playing per se. It's just, okay, we want this experience for people. This is what sells. It has nothing to do with a specific culture or a genre of JRPG. It's just, we want to do it this way. We have this on the diskette to fit our ROM, or was it 400? It wasn't 400. It was probably like 200 megs of pre-rendered video, and there was like 4 diskettes. So Final Fantasy VII was a big game at the time, and it got done. It was finished. It apparently had 200 programmers and developers, and designers and artists, like, okay, that's a big team. So they had plenty of time to do it. And that's the game they wanted to make. Nothing to do with customization. Nowadays, customization is pretty standard in multiplayer games or online games. So it's all about the game you want to make, not necessarily the technology that they're limited to because of culture. That's silly.
He's making all the decisions, and you're following along his story, his dialogue. You've got influence over the battles and exactly how fast he gets to a location, but are you playing a role?
Yes.
Or is the role playing you?
Good question, Jim. Look in the mirror.
He's pretending to have a brain.
Get in the car, dickheads. The discourse has come to town and it's time to run our fucking mouths. This past week, Final Fantasy XVI producer Naoki Yoshida, in an interview with SkillUp, sparked quite the interesting debate over the term JRPG and gave us all a lot to think about when it comes to perspective and how what may seem innocuous to one
What
group
was it, by the
might
way?
carry much
Does
more
anyone know?
negativity for another.
What does that have to do with Street Sharks?
JRPG, aka Japanese role-playing game. Most of us have used it as a shorthand before, and most of us have considered it quite harmless. But I wonder now, how many of us who've casually used the term for years stop to consider what Japanese RPG means to, like, Japanese game developers? Well, this is what Yoshida got everybody thinking about, and it turns out that they're not exactly in love with the term. This is going to depend on who you ask, but there was a time when this term first appeared 15 years ago, and for us as developers, the first time...
15 years ago?
Or like 40 years ago.
Yeah. You got a bit of a chronological issue there. Because first off, the simplest way to understand this term is RPG made in Japan. Just like we understand anime as animation made in Japan.
Yeah, they say anime,
and for Japan as well,
yeah,
not just
it's
animated for US cartoons.
It's a standard umbrella term for thing from place that happens to be of a certain media type. That's it. So the problem is we always get into the nitty gritty of what actually makes an RPG. So we just say, well, it's stats with role playing. And, it happens to be from Japan. It's like, that's fine. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. And I don't think game developers are going to care about semantics that much. They're just going to do their job. They're going to be like, I like doing things like this. I like this mechanic. I loved it from then. I'm doing it now. And that's that.
I've read on in this text, and I have a feeling this is an interpretation more than a translation.
Oh, yeah.
Because it talks about triggering bad feelings because of what was in the past. Like, that's how SJWs talk. So did Yoshida get infested with the mind virus, or what is going on here? JRPG is not a discriminatory term. If you think that is the case, that you're just being made fun of, that's a you problem. That's your narcissism speaking, your fuzzy ego.
That's a strange thing to say, that video game is derogatory, or like backgammon is inferior to checkers or something like that. It's like, no, it's its own thing. It has its own fan base, its own developers, its own style of making a thing experienced. So there's no negative or positive about it. It's just a collection of content and a style for presenting that content, whether it's turn-based or real-time cutscenes or pre-rendered. Like, there's no difference. It's just whatever the designers came up with and the technology they know how to use. So anyway.
In other words, Japan doesn't care about how you feel.
The definition is irrelevant to them, I would say. Yeah.
I think like he's only saying 15 years ago because like this is another proof how isolated Japanese market is.
I think it's just his experience. Like, he could be...
Absolutely, yes.
He could have no knowledge of gaming 20 years ago because he wasn't into it. And for whatever reason, he just fell into it because
Mark, what the hell?
God.
Sorry, what happened?
I accidentally stepped on something.
Are you okay?
Okay. We're back, don't worry. I just wanted to see how horrible it's going to be.
Oh.
Well, now we know.
All right. Anyway,
I
Spoilers.
did not want to know.
right. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Let me just read some super chats from the Copper Owl. That's where Moby Dick keeps the Lost Boys.
Oh no,
Oh dear.
the Epstein dungeon.
Interesting. I'm just like, yeah, he didn't spend any money to finish his basement. That's fine.
It's where Jim orders his pizza too.
Oh God. Here's Kyogrez Hideout. Thank you, sir.
Kyogre.
If you fight God or someone with a relation to God, chances are it's a JRPG. I like that. That's great.
Not wrong.
You even do that in Dragon's Dogma. That's supposed to be in the Western style.
Yeah. You gotta have a God in there to kill. That's true.
In Dragon's Dogma, you even become God.
Oh yeah.
And then decide to say, screw it all. Let the world choose for itself.
All right. Well, on with the video.
Term, Yoshida explained by way of translator Koji Fox, as though we were being made fun of for creating these games, and so for some developers the term JRPG can be something that will maybe trigger bad feelings because of what it was in the past.
Yeah, that's just your stupid bad interpretation because of your fragile ego. Shut the fuck up and keep making games because we love them. We give them this term to distinguish between Western RPGs, which work differently. Slightly. That doesn't mean we're discriminating. We're just distinguishing. Because we're distinguished people.
Yeah, I'm just like, who the hell in their right mind used JRPG to make fun of Japan in their games? I'm assuming
someone is playing victim here.
I think it's more of a
You don't say.
A look at the as Famicom games or games of that nature were like for kids, and they weren't like adults. They weren't like you're playing a kids game. It's like, well, technically sure, but they're not seen as bad because there's entertainment for everyone of every age. So nowadays it's pretty uniform throughout the world now. People play games. This is the gaming generation, at least the second gaming generation. So
I mean, they literally made Final Fantasy IV easier for Western audiences when it came out in the SNES.
Let's not get into translation and how they.
No, not even translation. I'm talking about difficulty.
Look, in Germany, the big games like Secret of Mana, Lufia, Illusion of Time, Terranigma, they all came in a big box that cost $30 extra because they contained the complete walkthrough with maps of every dungeon and every secret, because the Japanese developers thought we Europeans, Germans in that instance, were too dumb to play the games. Talk about discrimination.
Wow.
Asshole.
All right, anyway.
In hindsight, blessed beast hindsight, it makes sense really, and it's the least insulting. JRPG could very easily be seen as reductive at best. I'll admit I never really thought about it myself, and that ignorance is on me, especially because I was starting to make my name in games media at the time of there being a lot.
Is it just me, or do Jim's background cuts make absolutely no sense with what he's saying?
I don't know what was going on there. I was just
Does this have any relation to his words? Because he seems to be cutting it onto his words.
I have been ignoring it ever since he presented himself in the video.
That's probably the wisest choice.
Like, I'm not looking at the tab anymore. I'm just listening to the audio. As Smut has suggested, it is the only way to save my manhood.
That is possibly true.
All right.
RPG sentiment, but in my head, it's just a term people used, so I used it. That's kinda how terminology works.
Yeah, an RPG that came from Japan. What am I gonna call it? JRPG?
Asian RPG. You must not discriminate between all the Asian peoples because they're all the same.
Asian RPG coming from very eastern island.
The Asian Sony experience.
Mostly Sony experience.
But yeah.
Or do we need to discriminate more and make it a Hokkaido-esque RPG?
Jeez.
Honshu-esque RPG?
This is almost a non-issue, but again, we're talking semantics, so yes, you must have some point of terms that you must have defined. So it's like, all right.
It's a completely invented problem.
All right, well. He thinks it's a negative, but okay. Let's see where he goes.
It's not.
But I've learned over the years that just because a term is considered okay, it doesn't mean it is.
What?
As time goes by,
Yes, it
the
is.
understanding of how words affect certain groups of people, or the re-examination of the etymology behind them, could
God.
alter our perception of them and either change or outright retire their use. This is why I no longer use the term jizz peddler anymore. Stickle shits, I said it. Jizz peddler, I said stickle shits. Oh, jizz!
Is he being serious, or is he just making a joke?
I don't even know what he's saying. Oh, words have meanings, therefore hurty feelings. Shut the fuck up. Grow up. Grow up,
This is
Jim.
not a negative or positive word. This is just a definition of a genre.
Yes, just because one idiot feels hurt by it because he's an idiot doesn't mean that it's a bad word.
I mean, I'm always talking about science fiction and the difference between that and sci-fi, but I'm not like, oh, if you use science fiction, you're an idiot. It's like, I don't care if you don't know the nuance, and that's fine. It's just, you understand it's in the future. There's spaceships and wizards that can teleport with technology, and that's fine. I don't care.
By Jim's logic here, every word that just one person has had a negative association with becomes a bad word that should never be used. So we should just all be silent forever.
I think this is what this video is gonna be. It's this weird language police sort of nonsense about the topic he happened to be versed in because he's a game reviewer, critic, whatever he is. So he's just making a video.
Game clown.
The game clown.
Hey, that's an insult to clowns, okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that basically the journalists?
No, not necessarily, but some of them, yeah, for sure.
They're close, damn it.
Yeah. Some of those reviews are really bad. What is this?
It's supposed to be humor.
It wasn't a compliment to a lot of developers in Japan, Yoshida expounded. We understand that recently JRPG has better connotations and it's being used as a positive, but we still remember the time when it was used as a...
When was that?
Yeah, who is this?
It was
Second World War.
It was.
I assume this is made up. Secondly, he is what's the English word? Anmaßen. He is claiming to speak for everyone.
I don't know. It's like
I think he's projecting.
He's in this
He's
clique.
projecting his own ego on
He
everyone.
might have this small group of people that were working on racing games or other software, and then they suddenly found themselves at whatever company making a role-playing game. They're like, oh, is this the best we can do with our lives? You know, something like along those lines of how he got this opinion, because I don't think anyone who goes into game development has a negative attitude. They're like, I can't wait to make this. I love games. I love making games. Like, no one I've ever spoken to when I went to school or outside or actual developers, critics, news guys, they're all into the topic. They love games. When you talk about role-playing games from Japan, they're like, really? Which one? There's like thousands. I know. So, no, this has never been a negative term in my lifetime I've ever heard.
Gingerman, you wanted to say something?
I'm just like, I don't think it's ever been used as a negative. Yeah, this is invented. Fucking
Like maybe guys like Razor Fist, who really hates Japanese games, would use it as like, another Japanese game. But like,
Yeah, but he doesn't.
even
anyway.
he is like mimicking this like real smugness. Like he likes some of those games, but like most of the people that like use a JRPG as a completely negative term are not to be taken seriously.
Yeah. Oh well.
Personally interesting to me is how this discussion of the origin of the term lines up with and informs a bugbear of mine that I've recently been ranting about on live streams while playing Final Fantasy games as a result of my worrying theatre rhythm obsession. See, like I intimated a moment ago, I remember when what we classically thought of as traditional JRPGs was something of a pariah in Western gaming discourse, particularly when it came to game reviews. There's a particular video game I always bring up.
Proof.
Famitsu in Japan is amazing magazine that does amazing reviews. Sometimes they're a bit biased, but they're pretty accurate. So when they give a Zelda game a 90 or 100, it's like, well, that's a big deal. Like, how did they come to that? And sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not, but it's always pretty accurate. So, who is he listening to say that there's this negative connotation to talking about role-playing games in general? I don't.
I've never
Isn't
heard
that wonderful that a game journalist keeps throwing these that like, oh, it had a negative connotation, and this guy who is a Japanese game developer said so. Anyway, I'm not gonna present any evidence to prove my point. See, instead, these images of 80s cartoons from Fuck News where
that also have absolutely no.
I hate this person. How much money does he get for this shit? And like, he can't bring a single article from 10 or 20 years ago that he claims that like was giving a JRPG a negative meaning to it.
I can imagine that there were games journalists who just hate Japan because it's not bending the knee to the ideology that easily.
That's
started mocking Japan.
But he claims that like this has been happening for so long, yet there's not a single image that he can prove that shit with.
But that's what they always claim. They always claim everything has always been super bad in the past, and it's irredeemable.
It's just a typical Jim video. Why can't we just watch Mr. America instead? Like, he's also called Jim.
Oh boy.
Still less offensive, Jim.
Well, the more intelligent Jim, I'd rather. This is
this is the evil Jim.
Obscure take on a word that has nothing to do with reality. You're like, what? What are you talking about?
Made up nonsense.
All right. Well, I imagine there's a lot of RPGs the West doesn't get from Japan, so I'm assuming that they're like so specific and their niche or their audience is so niche that.
We mainly got the top cream of what comes out in Japan.
Oh, really? Okay.
Most of it is never translated.
So we get the odd Lost Odyssey, we get the odd Final Fantasy Tactics, we get just here and there.
Yeah, but yeah. There's so much stuff that you would never believe even exists, and there's a lot of Nintendo games that
most
fail.
of those porn games never get shipped to the West.
Yeah, that's true.
That as well. It's like our games industry or like our music industry. Think of garage metal. Most metal is shit because most of it is garage metal, and that's 99% crap. And the Japanese game industry is the same. And we only get part of the 1% at the top. And then some random bits.
Yeah, probably.
And that also informs our opinion that Japanese games are of very high quality because we only get that best of the best stuff here.
I think so. I think it's a little bit of both because people don't know games until they become popular. And it's like, oh, people want to buy them now. Like, same with Final Fantasy VII. No one knew what a Japanese RPG was until that came out in, was it 97 or 98? I can't remember exactly when.
Yeah, I think we just played games and then eventually started to make the distinction because there were distinct differences between them.
Yeah.
And this turn-based battle system of characters on one side, enemies on the other. I only associate that with Japanese games. I do not associate that with Western games at all.
Yeah, there are some rare exceptions with the Elder Scrolls. I remember playing that where you have your 6 characters on the GUI, and then you see the environment in front of you with the enemies. So there were exceptions, but it was very rare, and they weren't that big. They weren't that popular. They were hard to play. They were very slow. So, yeah, no, it was not for everyone. And we grew up with NES in the 80s, and that was its own hurdle for the market. And all we knew was either Super Mario, which was first released as a table in arcades, and then it got packaged with what was that crazy robot, that game where it was spinning a little top?
Rob
the robot, yeah. Or you got another package that had the power pad, and you had Summer Olympic Games or whatever. So you were doing this exciting thing, with Duck Hunt as well. So there was Duck Hunt, there was the Power Pad, and Rob the Robot. And that's how it was packaged in the 80s.
I thought Duck Hunt had one of these light guns.
Yeah, it came with it, yeah. So that was the introduction to NES or Japanese experiences with a game console as opposed to going to the arcade. Little different, little bit of a cultural shift, but we have embraced video gaming as the dominant entertainment media of all time.
Cobain in the chat says, pretty sure it had a negative connotation by Western games journalism pre-Final Fantasy VII. I am not aware of negative games journalism back in those days. Games journalism back in those days was done by enthusiasts, by gamers, by people who love video games, because it was a complete niche that you got made fun of for being into.
Yeah, it was like Nintendo Power Magazine, and in 98, was it when the internet was like getting there? There was all these, actually no, before that we had bulletin board systems you could log into through your modem, and there were groups that you could chat to on forums. This is pre-internet, and there were lots of fans of like Star Wars and video games and obscure stuff like that, card games especially. So there were fans out there. They were not connected. That's the only problem. They were there. They just didn't know about other people outside of their school, maybe. So anyway, let's keep going. The Copper Owl, thanks again. Razor likes Breath of Fire and Pokemon, both JRPGs. Yes, he does. That's true. I remember that.
Yeah.
Breath of Fire is pretty cool.
Breath of Fire is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is just only an act for him that like he hates Japan. He actually likes quite a few things from there.
Since someone brought up Breath of Fire, I do want to say that Dragon's Dogma has several developers that worked on Breath of Fire.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
Basically, a spiritual successor.
Really?
Breath of Fire also didn't properly release in Germany.
What did you get?
Then it fell through. I don't know why.
Did you get 1 to 4 at least?
No, I think maybe we got 2.
Oh wow!
But I'm not sure. I would have to look it up. But the Breath of Fire games, because I remember the Club Nintendo magazine had that advertised, and I was looking forward to it, and then it didn't come out. And that was the Nintendo in-house advertisement thing, basically the for free magazine you could just grab from the Nintendo portion of your electronics store.
Interesting.
Well, there were also the same people that made that magazine also made the German localizations.
Cool. One-stop shop. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why people were super pissed when that locale, when they were, it's in a town called Groß Ostheim, and when a couple of years ago Nintendo wanted to shut down that location, Nintendo fans of Germany protested because it's like this hallowed place in Germany that is like this cultural center of that we equate with Nintendo, and for traditional reasons, and of course for all the people who work there, we didn't want it to get shut down.
It's like closing down the local bar or something.
Yeah, it's like shutting down a cultural heritage site or something.
It is hallowed ground.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, you know Secret of Evermore?
Oh yeah.
No.
In the German localization, they made it that the game played in Groß Ostheim itself.
What is that?
And I don't know whether that old, I think I read that back in the magazine advertising it, that this derelict building was modeled after an actual building in Groß Ostheim. That where the secret laboratory is in the intro.
I remember that. That was
okay.
It was such a strange, not say a ripoff of Secret of Mana, but it felt very something's missing with this game.
What I remember about it, whether that's true or not, but the story that was going around was that we didn't get Secret of Mana 2 localized, which was very frustrating for everyone.
Huh.
But and Squaresoft was just being bought or moving to Sony. and they had one more game under contract. They were contracted to make one more game for Nintendo, and that became Secret of Evermore.
I do know,
and that's why it may be a bit lackluster and dark, because they just didn't actually want to make it.
I do know it was a bit difficult, but it was made in America. It was not made in Japan. So it had it felt like Secret of Mana, but obviously the story and the characters and everything was very different.
Oh, it was already frustrating that it didn't have a 2-player mode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you couldn't you could switch to play as the dog, but you couldn't have two people playing it. Like one plays the guy and one plays the dog. That wasn't possible.
If you're gonna base a game off anything, it makes sense to base it off one of the best. So I was like, oh, this is great, and then you play it, and you're like, oh, this is not so great. So it is an odd experience. I would say it's not too different from, let's say, actually it's very different from, let's say, Chrono Cross, but it wasn't what you were expecting. Whereas Chrono Cross was pretty much a successor, but Secret of Evermore was its own thing, its own IP.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that game was so dark. It was dreary, and you felt not depressed, but you felt like this pressure and weight in the room.
It was when you're attacked. I think the first weapon is a spear, and instead of using the spear in the normal way a human would use a spear, like thrusting, you use
No, he doesn't thrust it. He rams it into the ground an inch in front of his foot. It's the shortest imaginable spear attack you can imagine.
I think that the point of that was that the stone was too heavy or something. It was a stone spear, and you was like, "This is silly. This is really dumb."
No. But you get like later you get a bronze spear and so on. You get the upgraded versions later in the other epochs. But I think that game was just made as a big middle finger to Nintendo.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
That's why it was not fun. There was no joy in it, and the spear was the shortest range thing imaginable, like completely counterintuitive. I think it was just a middle finger to Nintendo. Still interesting, but
I do remember the annoying merchant game. You had to buy this to get that. You have to go to this part of the merchant to get you just I don't know if you ever...
That was the merch. Do you mean the magic system?
No. There was a part in the game that you had to, like, this guy wants 3 things of this. This guy wants 5 things of that. And it's like, oh, you have to run around this marketplace, and you didn't know who had what.
Oh yeah,
it was so long and annoying, and it just reminded me of what was it, the Great River in Ferengi lore, where it's like there's a great river and everyone's connected to it. You have to fight all this crap to get some more crap. So you get the thing.
It's basically the trade game the little subquest that Zelda games also tend to have, where you do this cow trade until you get the item that you want, that you need for the story. But at least it was confined to one place, and that's that marketplace.
Yeah, I know.
The problem with that was, I think for that specific place they actually had a day-night cycle. Or did they have a day-night cycle in general in that game?
In what game specifically?
Secret of
Evermore. I think they had a day-night cycle, and the market was only there during the day.
It was an interesting game. Like, every time you teleported to a new area, your dog would transform into one of the creatures native to the area. And
it's fitting to the time period that the continent was.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting, like, this is something that maybe someone would write a story about, like a fantasy novel, and it was so off and weird that it didn't have the same charm or vibe that you wanted from Secret of Mana. Because the vibe, Secret of Mana, as broken as it was, it felt like, oh my god, this is magical. There's something.
Yeah, and it felt
special.
like made in one, like everything flowed into each other. And Secret of Evermore felt like it lacked polish.
Oh, for sure.
It lacked this feeling of life.
Anyway, we've been talking about Secret of Evermore too long. It's one of those weird experiences that it's like you wanted to just to see what the hell is this game about. You have to keep going and going and going.
Yeah, and then you get to the first boss, and it is an absolute nightmare.
Meanwhile, someone mentions a merchant. I just default to the one from Resident Evil 4.
What are you buying? What do you
got something that might interest you?
Gingerman, have you ever played Secret of Evermore? Just to finish this off.
I've barely heard of it. I don't know much about it.
Okay. If you ever do, or if you play, or if you just watch a playthrough of it,
so it's worth it's worth it despite being an FU to Nintendo.
No, it's interesting. But your first weapon is just a bone. It's your sword in the beginning, just a bone, and then imagine with that you go to a Lovecraftian nightmare insect boss that is several feet high. That you have to attack his heart that is inside its spiky torso thing, that and the rib spikes are moving and it's raining acid, and that's your first boss. Which is inside the giant skeleton of an even bigger bug.
Yeah, I looked it up. Japan never got it.
Yeah, they don't want it.
I'm not surprised.
Fuck off, America. Here you go. And Europe.
All right. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Oh no.
Lost Odyssey. Mistwalker's Xbox exclusive RPG has always been, in my opinion, brilliant. I fucking love that game. It's got some amazing writing in it, particularly the melancholic short stories recounting the many lives of its immortal protagonist. Its gameplay is rock-solid turn-based combat with an interesting immortality dynamic and a neat little time-based attack gimmick. And via the character of Jansen, Lost Odyssey still has by far some of the best and funniest voice acting.
Okay, Jim, you are a bloody idiot. Because the dub of Lost Odyssey rewrites the characters into completely different people that they are not. I've forgotten the name. The guy who's sitting right now in the dub is a complete jokester who just makes stupid commentary. In the original, which you can see in the English sub, because you can activate the English subtitles, and have the dub running, and you see they say completely different things that have nothing to do with each other. The subs are accurate to the Japanese, and if you just have to not distract you, have the Japanese dub running, the original, and the English subtitles, you see that this character is not a stupid jokester. Instead, he makes intelligent, quippy jokes between the lines. He is just a bit sarcastic, but he's not an over-the-top comic relief. There are other characters that do that. So Jim is an idiot. He is, what do you call this? Easily entertained.
Lost Odyssey is not for everyone, I'll say that. So if he got something out of it from the English translation, I mean, good for him. But he's talking about the character Jansen, which I don't...
Yeah, but he's talking about the dub, and the dub of this game is bullshit.
Yeah. Anyway.
If you play this game, first play this game, second...
I'm not laughing, okay?
Use the sub.
But it was released in 2008. The tail end of the 2000s, around the time the term JRPG is said to have been embraced on a wide scale.
What?
In the West?
Is said to be by whom?
Citation needed.
Where was this colloquially used, and in what part of the world?
They're like early 2000s. We already had a bunch of words for this.
I remember the argument about was it? Yeah, 97, Final Fantasy VII came out, but before that, Symphony of the Night came out. And everyone's like, oh, you should have bought Symphony of the Night. It's like, yeah,
97.
It was 97, yeah. Everyone loved Symphony of the Night because the gameplay was just amazing, the music was amazing, the combat, everything was great, so much fun.
I'm just like, if Jim ever makes a video like this about Metroidvania, I think Smut and I are gonna have a field day about
that would be
that one.
Oh no! Oh no!
It would be hilarious, but look at Symphony of the Night. They have hundreds of references to all kinds of lore, nothing to do with Japan. So,
dude, literally the entire second half of the game is just Simon's Quest done right.
It flips everything on its head literally, and you're just going through harder versions of what you just went through. And it's done so well. The story is barely there. It's like, oh, someone's over there. You go get them. Like, okay.
Well, it's inspired. Well, it took inspiration from Metroid. What did you expect?
Oh yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that. But there's so
That's
much to
completely
explore.
fine.
There's so much to do. The controls are tight as hell. Everything's elegant. The music is amazing. There's all these secrets. There's all these techniques. There's all these items. It's just this wonderful collecting experience. And you eventually you're at a certain point, you're just so powerful. You're just like a demigod walking around. But that's the great feeling of it. You are
Two Crusagrams and 2 Rings of Varda.
Yeah, just forget about it. Everything's dead. So it's so much fun. But that's part of the joy of those. It's like a Diablo game. Like you're collecting this and that, but everything's static. So you know where to go. Diablo's a bit random, of course. So is that a JRPG? Yeah, of course. But we don't differentiate on master or parent genre. We differentiate on subgenre, where it's like, well, a side-scrolling Castlevania game is not a Lost Odyssey. It's very different. So subgenres matter when you go into talking about a topic. But that's everything. That's every movie. It's every book. It's every video game, I guess, in the West. There's nuances now. And there should be. So
the term's been around for so much longer and not used as negative.
Yeah, if he would just say...
Never.
If he would say this is a master genre descriptor, be like, yeah, be as vague as you want. It doesn't matter then. And you can get into turn-based. You can get into setting as genre. You can get into gameplay as genre. Go crazy.
Yeah, but by that text he presented to us, that is really a you problem of that developer, of that specific developer.
Yeah, I know. It's very specific, and I don't think it's indicative of...
Which who even was that? I still don't know.
Yeah, if this was like...
Look, for something to be insulting, there need to be 2 people, the one who feels insulted and the one who wants to insult. Since this was never meant as an insult, yet this one guy takes it as an insult and claims to speak for everyone else.
Yeah,
it's not an insult. It's just him whining.
If this was the late 90s, I'd be like, okay, maybe that could be a thing. You know, maybe people in Japan are like, oh, okay, maybe they're very sensitive to gaming culture.
No, why? Then they would have to explain to me why it would be an offensive term, and then they would have to explain to me why they needed to send complete walkthroughs for all their games to our children because they thought they were retarded.
But nowadays, when you have multi-million, billion-dollar industry, it's the number one media entertainment thing we have, and Final Fantasy is known the world over. We have movies, we have remakes, we still have more remakes coming out of one numbered Final Fantasy. If you don't know what that is by now, and it's not beloved, who is saying it's bad? Who are these people?
Oh, who said it was bad?
And why are you listening?
Maybe recently, because this show never ran in Germany, or I never even knew of this. Look, I never knew of this G4 thing until this Frost person showed up and made a fuss and destroyed it completely. And I've seen some of their old advertisement skits, and bloody hell, those were actively racist towards Japan. They were actively shitting on them. It seems they actively hated the Japanese, and even made the comment of when they wanted to start bad contracts with Japan, that in one they even mentioned that, oh, we probably can't make these jokes then anymore. Things like that.
All right. And Sessler's meltdown about all that shit is amazing.
That dude, every time he opens his mouth, it's just rage. It's like, dude, take a vacation.
How the mighty have fallen.
All right.
Yeah, so if you count those as games journalists, then maybe there was hate towards Japan.
Yeah,
but that was just these guys. That was not the profession as a whole, and much less the gamers.
I dare say it's a false equivalent.
No, well,
look, we wouldn't buy your games if we look down upon them.
I don't even think G4 would ever
things
say
are expensive.
JRPGs are bad or there's a certain negativity about them. I think this is very, very specific to this guy's experiences and the problems he had getting into the industry, or parents talking down to him, or whatever the case may be. Who knows what the issue is? So I don't know where it's coming from. Jim doesn't know. No one knows. And this interview is for Final Fantasy 16. Maybe people are complaining that are fans of Final Fantasy. When the game's coming out? Well, why is it taking so long? Because we've been waiting for this for a few years now. And we just had 15 go on to PC, I think, last year. So.
Yes, and they are still working on Final Fantasy VII's remake.
Yeah.
Part 2, yeah.
So these things are
part 3.
Highly anticipated.
There's already a part 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think right now we just have part 1 and the remake of Crisis Core.
Yeah, the Crisis Core remake,
Yeah, so
that's all we have right now.
These games take a very long time. I'm assuming there's lots of pressure because even 16 was announced years and years ago. And I'm not too sure about it either. It looks kind of medieval-ish, weird.
It basically a combination of the old medieval setting of the Final Fantasy series combined with Devil May Cry, I've been told.
Wow.
I mean, it's Japan. They can make it work.
Well, I gave up after 9.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. That is fun.
The MMOs were fine, though.
I don't play MMOs.
Different experience.
I'm too old for that.
Yeah.
Just play Pocky and Rocky.
All right.
And last thing about Square specifically, and then Forsaken came out, which was bombed so hard the development studio got shut down.
Yeah.
Or Forspoken, yeah. That was a Square Enix game.
As I expected nothing less than disaster.
All right.
The worst isekai ever made.
Oh yeah.
That is one hell of a bar.
That's saying something, yes.
Used or at least seen to rise of time, such games were lambasted for being old-fashioned, boring, all the same, in need of a shaker.
By whom?
I saw this brilliant game criticised time and time again for these things, and I just didn't get it. It was doing what games of its genre did, and it did those things fantastically. I believe it's no coincidence that Square Enix spent years after Final Fantasy IX ceaselessly reinventing the wheel with its combat mechanics and gameplay gimmicks. It is just a belief, mind. But for years I said Square gave off the impression that it was ashamed of the genre that made its flagship series so famous.
Stupid.
But I can hug.
Citation needed.
Can you imagine?
I'm pretty sure between 9 and now, the only real bomb is the 13 trilogy.
Well,
yeah, 13. Like, but is he trying to paint 13 as like a good sequel? Is he for real?
Yeah, but this is like any shop that's been doing something for 10 years and going, oh my God, I'm making cold cuts, or I'm baking bread. Oh, it's so beneath me. It's not healthy food. What am I doing? It's like no one's saying that.
I'm pretty sure even 15 learned from the mistakes of 13. Jeez. It has its flaws to be sure, but even 15 was able to like surpass 13.
Like, this is me saying, well, I bet BioWare is like, oh, we're so stupid. How can we make a game like this? It's like, no, they're BioWare. They don't give a shit. They're like,
yeah, they just make Andromeda after 3.
They'll just make more money doing something else, and that's all they do. Like, they don't sit around going, oh, we're so stupid. We should have done better. It's like, you make games for a living. You love your job. You work crazy hours. And that's a problem.
Yeah, and then they make a game where literally the first input you ever do in the game is nuke that damn planet.
Destroy everything that came before.
Destroy everything that you did before. Invalidate everything that you did.
The start button.
It's like people say press F to pay respect or press X to doubt. I want press start to nuke to catch on.
Oh boy. Anyway, Jim, you are speculating on a very dumb concept of negativity.
Listening to a profession that we know is just making up shit.
Yeah, honestly, guys, anyone who's in gaming is there because they want to be there as hard as it is, as long as the hours are, as difficult and hair-pulling as development multimedia is. They love it. So, do they
Also,
second-guess themselves? Sure they do.
Yeah. Also, dick move for showing 13 to prove your point, dude.
Yeah, 13 is not...
Yeah.
Again, from 9 to now, I'm pretty sure 13 is the only real bomb. Every other game between 9 and now has had at least its group of fans.
Well,
even 15.
Even 13 has fans. I will say that maybe not the later 13 games, but the first one I think people liked. So, believe it or not, there are high ratings of 13 still today. So,
dude, the first Force Unleashed is a better Final Fantasy 13 than Final Fantasy 13.
You're right. Yes.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah,
to be fair to 13, Force Unleashed has the advantage of being in the Star Wars universe, but still.
Yeah, no.
How far in are you now?
I just got to the second visit to Raxus Prime. But anyway.
Okay.
Well, the concept of the LC and all these other gods and dying, it feels like it came out of a manga that was not popular, and they ran with this concept, and it's, wow, what a dumb idea.
What's that? Killing gods in Final Fantasy? That totally hasn't been a thing since day fucking one.
Yeah, I know. It was a good idea in concept, but the story is just absolute garbage. Anyway, we got a super chat. No, so we got a donation from Hugh Janice. How's it going, Hugh? I'll tell Jim what we can stop saying JRPG only after we are allowed to stop saying that Jim is a woman or Jim is a moron who should have left the internet years ago. We can discuss everything else later.
Based.
I think he's inventing drama here and making a video at it, as most of these people do. They have nothing to share, so they invent something that doesn't exist, and all interpret from one weird interview from a guy trying to make Final Fantasy 16 on a deadline. So,
from a confused guy with ego problems.
I don't know. Who knows what's going on? Maybe he's just wanting to get attention, but to make a game like a Final Fantasy takes a lot of effort, a lot of resources, a lot of pressure. So I'm sure there's not every positive vibe is coming his way. And sadly, I'm not as intrigued as I should have been, probably, with 16. But same thing happened with 15. Whenever how long 15 took, like Crystallis crap and all the verses talk and...
Who remember when it was Versus 13? I do.
Yeah, it was Shakespearean.
Me too.
And it had all these cutscenes, and they just watered it down. It wasn't about love; it was about dynasty. And you're like, "What is?"
I'd also like to remind everyone that 15 is the reason Kingdom Hearts 3 took so long.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not even kidding.
Square has to fix its development cycle for sure. It's been an ongoing thing. Anyway, we're gonna go till hopefully 9 or 10 minutes because Jim is now.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, Jim
is not saying anything.
If he's just talking about this one guy's statement and then interpreting that's a waste of time. So.
To Western game reviews, who seemed at the turned on the genre. The early 2010s saw anti-Japanese game sentiment really start to brew. I was reminded of what game developers Phil Fish and Jonathan Blow were saying of Japan's games around this time in an article by VG247. Now my memory sucks, but after being jolted, it's all clear as day now. This was like a big deal back then. Your games just suck, Fish said to a Japanese developer at a GDC panel before offering on Twitter,
he's an idiot.
Games are fucking
he's an
terrible
asshole
nowadays.
We have to give a shit about someone's opinion who quit game developing after being butthurt from the community. Seriously? Some French-Canadian faggot
Who cares about Blow? No one. He's gone.
No one cares. Like even he doesn't care about it. He just said like, do whatever you want with my game. Like,
there's lots of reasons.
One
why people...
salty French guy said something insulting because he himself has ego problems. Look, this is just narcissists bitch slapping each other.
There's nothing wrong with someone who's frustrated with, I don't know, the medium or the genre as a whole, doing his own thing, saying, hey, you know what? I got into this because you suck or whatever. Fine. If that's motivation for you to make a game, go for it. But if you're going to go to a GDC panel and piss people off, I mean, are you encouraging them by pissing them off? Or are you just being mean? What's the point? This is not very, what do they call it, constructive criticism? I could say
it's just someone being jealous.
I could say to Hideki Anno, I mean, your love for anime is crazy. I think you should take a pill and enjoy life and then come back to being creative. As opposed to, I absolutely hate everything you do. So, I would have thought you'd
bring up Kojima for that analogy, but Kojima,
okay. I mean, I would be cruel if he was my friend, because friends would say proper things to friends and they'd be brutally honest, right? If I'm just a random schmo, I'm not going to give my encyclopedic explanation why you suck. That's not very nice. You have to do it in a certain way. So to go to a GDC panel and say you suck is just rude. Anyway.
Is about games that inspired us?
Recent.
Recent.
I'm sorry.
They suck. I'm sorry. Like, you guys need to get with the times and make better interfaces and like update your technology. We're totally kicking your ass. Back then, you guys are the.
I think you've got that backwards.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Western UIs are not good.
I was gonna say, I think you've got that backwards, bud.
Well, the argument for technology has always been an issue with Nintendo, and we understand that because Nintendo was focused on making certain styles of games for certain people, and they
just care about making games fun, right, first and foremost.
That's the philosophy, but they're not concerned about how much frame rates or polygons or crap like that Sony and Xbox were doing at the time. And that's why.
Although if recent rumors are anything to go by, that might just bite them in the ass with Switch eventually.
We don't know, but that's that was the philosophy back then. So to say that the technology is not up to par, it's like, well, people are buying Nintendo way more than Xbox or Sony in Japan. So who cares? They know their clientele, and they're making amazing stuff. So,
yeah, and who invented the ring menu?
Oh yeah, that's right. The GUIs from Secret
Mass Effect 2.
No. That's the wrong ring menu.
No, I was gonna say
that's the only one we care about.
No, I actually want to hear the real answer.
Secret of Mana.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of innovation you can do when you're limited. We say this a lot in writing. Don't write the next or don't try to write the next Stephen King novel. Try to write a short story novel that you know what you're doing. You could talk about, and you could do it in a different or interesting or evocative way, as opposed to having this giant canvas of thousands of pages where you've run out of ideas or you've run out of energy. That's not how you write. Same with writing nowadays. If you want to do a poem, poems are short. Half a page. That's all you need. Get your emotions out, figure them out, make them magical, make them rhyme if you want, make them sound exactly the way you think they should sound, and then that's your first draft. Then do a second draft, then do a third draft, because that's all a poem is one half piece of paper. So this argument that I don't know what is this guy talking about? How Western gaming surpassed or is kicking Japan's butt? Like, what is he? What sales figures? Is he talking about like Call of Duty? Like, what is he comparing that to? Like Dragon Quest?
I don't know.
Again,
World of Warcraft didn't have a great UI. It was so bad that the players made their own.
Yeah, again,
and even that looked like ass because you just needed to do too many things.
Again, they're beating us, and they always have been.
There are games with UI issues for sure, but that is true for both sides.
Yeah, I want to know what he means by beating. Does he mean sales? Does he mean fun? Does he mean like what? Because as a game developer, you're obviously very opinionated from the games you've played, and you're not going to like I won't play certain sports games, for example. I don't care. It just doesn't interest me.
Did Fish make anything after Fez?
No, he literally quit after that. Like I think that this is his last GDQ appearance.
And first?
Yeah, I guess so. He wasn't in the industry for too long. Like he was developing that fucking game for years, and they made the indie game movie about him. And who was the other guy? I think it was the Binding of Isaac guy that those movie was made, and like they got so full of themselves. You can very clearly see it in this interview, but it's just they didn't go too far. I think right after Gamergate, he gave up entirely.
Well, yeah, JS says he was one of the guys that a certain someone had sex with for favors.
Oh, let's not get into that, please. Let's not.
Yeah, not today.
I don't know who. I don't know the connections of who.
Yeah, we gotta go on with this video.
We know the general story.
Yeah.
Fast. I'm so sorry.
Did you look at his face? Look at what you did, Phil.
That's just gonna make him better and stronger. Japan's like, oh, our games suck? Really? Oh, give us like 2 months, sir.
Insert the Obi-Wan line from A New Hope.
Meanwhile, Blow would call Japanese games joyless husks. And no, he wasn't describing himself. Okay, that was a bit of a low blow. Ha! But he's pretty joyless.
This is, well, I mean, I don't like Japanese games either. The thing that I don't like about them, all the modern ones that I've played, except, like Dark Souls and Demon Souls and stuff, is you sit down and the game treats you like an idiot, right?
What?
Fish has since apologised, but
in
his
what
comments
way?
reflected wider attitudes in the gaming community at the time. This was a period where, on forums and social media, JRPG was absolutely a term of derision. I've always loved...
No.
How did I treat you?
We're past 9 minutes. We can quit the video.
No.
No,
time for memes.
No,
memes.
halfway.
Memes.
Halfway.
Okay.
Can we look at the insane last 2 minutes?
Oh, sure, we could do that.
Halfway.
I don't mind.
No.
Maybe it's just a big him dancing around in his hat. I don't know.
Oh god.
Well, whatever he's doing at the start of the video is walking in his basement. So I'm like, okay, is he gonna do anything down there? Is it a prop, or he's gonna find or? Da 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 da. Oh, it's taking a while to load. Holy jeez. Come on, watch together. You can do it. And he did it.
Take it away.
I think it's just buffering forever.
Don't repeat the mistakes of 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I'm not old! I am. But we don't repeat those mistakes and start slagging off an entire country's games because there are good Japanese games, there are bad Japanese games, there are good American games.
You are such a waste of time. Let's just keep it.
Yeah, that's pointless.
Yeah. Nothing to say from Jim. Reading too much into a blog post of an interview. All right, here we go. Did I miss anything? No, I'm good. All right, so today we use our power to fell a god and then seize our destiny. Okay. And then we have... Which one is this? This is 2?
That's Shulk from 1.
From 1, okay.
Because those moments happen next to each other.
Whenever Jim enters a body of water, giant purple brain? What is that?
Oh no, not the brains.
Interesting. Gingaman, what's this? What? Oh, this. Oh, yeah, this is Dragon's Dogma.
Again, yes.
The grabbing mechanic. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes.
Static mesh, not the best target, but I am climbing the. What is that? A sheep? What is?
I can't tell.
Anyone who's not played Dragon's Dogma, I think you owe it to yourself. Try the mechanic just for a few hours.
I think it's on 5. I think it's on sale right now. Let me check.
You do need a controller though. It's not the same with.
Yep, $5. Get it now.
Ooh, nice. All right, that's all we needed. That was it.
Excellent.
Okay.
I am depressed now.
That was our monthly fill of Jim. Let's just change the screen. So there we go. Yeah, guys, if you're in a public forum, don't ever tell some person from another country that their media or their food or their music or anything of the sort is bad. It's not very nice.
Yeah, but the Jimquisition person told me that it's like that, so you probably have to believe that, don't you? This fat weird man from the dungeon.
It's like if he just took his makeup off,
he would still be fat.
And just talk like a person. I'd be like, okay. Jim.
Oh, you think like his weight is coming from the makeup? Ah, I see.
Yeah, yeah. He carries a bodysuit with him, I'm sure. He's working out with the fat suit. Yeah. Oh dear. Anyway, guys, that was only an hour and a half, not even an hour and a half of Jimquisition. As you can see, there's nothing wrong with the word JRPG. He invented this. I don't even know what to call it. It's not even a problem. It's just a blog.
He gaslit himself, I think.
I don't know what to call it. I really don't, because we see this a lot with these people on the left. I wouldn't say Jim necessarily is
I think he's
attributing. What's that?
He's trying to create facts in order to have a problem.
There is no issue with nomenclature or definition. We've been arguing the definition of an RPG since I played them. Every game reinvents itself. That's how games work. They borrow and steal from other games. Now we have shooter games that are RPGs and vice versa. So it's whatever the game is trying to do. And in the West, we focus more on rule sets because we love our D&Ds and our Pathfinder games and our tabletops. And in Japan, they love their Famicom games and their Dragon Quests and their Square Soft Enix games nowadays. And that's totally fine. It's not for everyone, but I used to get excited over Final Fantasy, now I don't. It's just how it goes. So nothing wrong with the genre.
You can always play more Persona 4.
Persona series are great. Love them. Yeah, great idea.
I'm still waiting for 5 to be on sale.
Yeah, I know. It's going to take another few years.
No, next summer. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, that was an anime-inspired Monday. So thank you so much for.
Thank you, Matthias, for giving us a gym video.
Again, yeah.
Again.
That was too
very
fast.
Good Brazilian man.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll get one about anime or manga. That'll be fun. And if there's any, actually no, because the topic is JRPGs. If you guys have any JRPGs you want us to talk about, tell us in the Discord. We're actually putting together a Smud talk about JRPGs. We'd love to have you on, have your topic and knowledge of a certain game or a game franchise come on play. That'd be great. And we'd love to talk to you about it. So thanks for tuning in. Have yourself a great day. Keep the suggestions coming. Keep the voting going. And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dragon's Dogma.